so thankful that you join us here every week, whether you're here in person, joining us live online, or just catching up with one of our messages at your convenience on Facebook or our website, inspirethespirit.org. We're in a message series where we're taking 8 weeks and we're breaking down each of the 8 Beatitudes, which are the opening 8 statements, blessings pronounced by Jesus as he delivered the Sermon on the Mount. And we're halfway through, so we've knocked out 4 of them. Today is our 5th Beatitude, and our message is entitled, Blessed are the Merciful. So I want you to think back on a time when you were shown some mercy. Somebody gave you a break. Someone forgave a debt. Maybe you owed them some money. Maybe it was as simple as they picked up your lunch tab. Maybe you hurt someone that you love, but somehow they forgave you and gave you a second chance. Maybe you made a big mistake once, possibly even at work, but you received mercy instead of punishment, and you learned and took it as an opportunity to continue to grow. See, because as humans, we are imperfect sinners, each and every one of us. And we deserve punishment because the Bible tells us the wages of sin is death. But instead, God offers us grace and mercy. And he gives us a way out through his son Jesus and what he did in the message of the cross. Today's beatitude is Matthew chapter 5, verse 7. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And as we've done each week, we break our beatitude down. You first have the blessing in the group. Blessed are the merciful. And that's your group that Jesus is addressing. But it's more than just a group. It's actually utilized as a verb, these blessings. It's actually a call to action, a call for each of us to become merciful. And then the second part, the promise and the reward, for they will be shown mercy. So quite simply, when we show mercy and give mercy to someone else, we too position ourselves to receive mercy when we need it. Now make no mistake, Jesus is passionate about justice. And what's justice do? It implies and enforces a law, and there are consequences and punishments that come from our actions. But while God is always passionate about justice, simultaneously he's enthusiastic about showing grace and mercy. That's why Jesus paid the ultimate price for us, so that we could truly live and be free from any bondage of our sin, our mistakes, and all of our shortcomings. Jesus conquered the grave to save our souls through God's grace and his own mercy. And it's the Holy Spirit that he left and dwells within us that allows us to show that same mercy to each other. There were 2 youth directors named Gavin and Clark, and they were going to have a lock-in. And if you're like me, you grew up in the 80s, you know what lock-ins were. You'd go to the church house on Friday afternoon after school, you'd go in, they'd lock the doors, and it was an all-nighter. And there was music and games and fellowship and Christian-based evangelistic movies and messages by the pastors and little study groups, and you had pizza and junk food, and you just fellowshipped and worshiped until the next morning on Saturday when they opened the doors and you went home, your parents picked you up. Well, Gavin and Clark had a lock-in at their church. And they pushed and advertised and got into the schools and got as many kids as they could in their small community. They had 30 kids show up. And they were going great. And then that evening, Gavin and Clark, these 2 associate youth pastors, they were playing a little ping pong. And they were hitting the ball back and forth. It was an intense game. And the ball, they were down to the final score, and the ball bounced off. And a young 8th grade girl named Tracy snatched up the ping pong ball and refused to give it back to him. But she clutched it. They said, oh, hey, thanks, toss us the ball so we can finish our game. No, it's my ball. You're not finishing. You don't need to play anymore. And Gavin started he felt the irritation starting to come up, but he remembered they had just done a little lesson on mercy. And they had just quoted a verse, love is patient, love is kind. And as he reached, he kind of held back and he thought, here's an opportunity. So Gavin and Clark began to ask, hey, we haven't seen you around before. You new here? You new in town? How you liking the lock-in? And they engaged in dialogue. Instead of getting upset and berated her and give the ball back, that's not how we behave, they just started kind of talking and joking with her. And reluctantly, Tracy gave the ball back and said, here, finish your game. Well, they went to a little session, and they had a message, and at the end of the message, they had an invitation, and 6 kids walked down to give their lives to Christ. And one of them was Tracy. And Gavin and Clark kind of looked at each other. And after the service, the head preacher gave an opportunity for anybody in the room, for kids, if they wanted to share a testimony. And this little reclusive 8th grade girl that no one really knew much about came up to the microphone to give a testimony. And she said, I come from a home that doesn't believe in God. I've never been to church. I'm not even sure why I showed up tonight, but I just came. And something happened earlier. You see, my whole life, no one paid attention to me. So I got attention by acting out and doing bad things and making people mad at me, so at least they knew I was existent. But these 2 guys showed me something different tonight. They kind of raised their eyes. Uh-oh, she's calling out Gavin and Clark. They had an opportunity to get mad, but they showed me something different. And I decided I wanted whatever they had. You see, we never know how an act of mercy and a little patience and kindness can change the course and direction of someone's life. Now, let's be clear. Grace and mercy are similar, but they're not the same. Grace is getting what you do not deserve. Mercy is not getting what you do deserve. So think about it this way. Grace is receiving something. Mercy is avoiding something. I remember it like this. Grace is a G, so I'm getting something. I don't deserve it, but I'm getting God's grace and salvation. Mercy, M, I'm missing out on something. I deserve punishment. I deserve a consequence, but because of God's mercy, I'm avoiding that. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 4 through 5 says, but God is so rich in mercy, and He loves us so much that even though we were dead because of our sins, He gave us life when He raised Christ from the dead. It is only by God's grace that you have been saved. As followers of Christ, we are called to be merciful. Yes, even when someone has wronged you. Yes, even when they do not deserve your kindness. And even when you don't feel like showing them any mercy. I want you to think of one person. Someone that's wronged you in life. The relationship went south. Somebody betrayed you. Somebody offended you, hurt you badly. Think of that one person. We all have somebody. And then think about the story of the sheep, and when the one sheep strayed out of 100, and how Jesus left the 99 to go back after that one sheep. We're called to be like that. We can stay with the 99 friends, but we're called not to forget the person that's hurt us, the person that's done us wrong. You see, God shows us great mercy, so now we can extend that same mercy to others. In the 1990s, there was a powerful story about, there was a teacher, he was a 7th grade teacher, and he was in Seattle. He took a new job, and he goes to the Seattle school system from outside town. And he got there, and he starts school, and he's teaching special ed. and he's helping underprivileged kids and kids with learning needs and physical disabilities. And early in the school year, he finds out he and his wife have a young baby. They have 2 kids, and the youngest baby has a rare form of bone marrow cancer and has 6 months to live. He needs a bone marrow transfer, a surgical procedure, and the cost is $200,000 back then. But there's a clause in the insurance with him. He took a new job and has new insurance. The insurance would not cover transplants and surgical procedures until he had been employed for a year. Well, he doesn't have a year. His kid only has 6 months, and he's going to have to pay the $200,000 out of pocket. Word spread through the school quickly of this dilemma. And Mr. Jeff Leland, this teacher, had a young boy named Damien in his class who was in his special ed class, had some learning disabilities, but he had some severe physical disabilities too. And his legs were weak and they were crooked, and he walked with a severe limp. And quite honestly, he was an outcast. He was made fun of. He didn't have a great home life. But this little boy really liked Mr. Leland. So one night he shows up at Mr. Leland's house and he knocks on the door at dinner time. Mr. Leland opens the door, surprised to see Damien there. And Damien, this 7th grade boy, says, "Mr. Leland, I heard about your baby boy and I don't want him to die. I know it's a lot of money. I don't have a lot, but I want you to have this." And he handed him 12 crinkled $5 bills, $60. Well, Mr. Leland doesn't really know how to respond, kind of caught in an awkward position. So he goes, "Would you like to sit down and have dinner?" "Sure. Don't always get dinner at my house." So they sit down for dinner, and the family holds hands, and they pray, and they have dinner. Damien had never seen a family sit at a table and pray before they ate dinner. Well, over the course of the next several weeks, Damien and the Leland family, they kind of befriended him. They started taking him to church. He'd come by and check on the baby. And during this process, word got back to the school about Damien's act of mercy and giving up his life savings of $60. Well, the school, the kids got together and said, "We're going to start a fundraiser. We're going to help Mr. Leland raise $200,000. And we're going to make Damien in charge." The kid that was an outcast and made fun of was called in, and he moved those students' heart to the point they said, "You're in charge. You're going to lead us in this endeavor. You're the poster child. You're the man." And Damien was so pumped up. And they did a walk-a-thon. They did a bake sale. They did the car wash thing. The school newspaper printed a big article, and the local newspaper picked up on it and ran this big story. And soon every little business in and around the school was having jars at the cafe registers, and everybody was raising money. And it started with $60 of seed money. Well, they were 4 weeks out, and they're still short, and they're still trying to raise money. And all of a sudden, they set up a bank account, and all of a sudden, $10,000 checks started coming in from people in the community. And corporations started donating. And the news picked up on it and ran a big full-blown news story. How a young special ed student named Damien, with one act of passion and mercy, had started this community rallying around this teacher and their child. And just a few weeks before that deadline, when the surgery had to be done, they had $220,000. They had the surgery, and Mr. Leland's little boy lived and was very healthy and alive today. A few weeks after the surgery, Damien died from severe complications from an infection he had developed in his legs. But with that $20,000 left over, the Lelands and the school threw the ultimate celebration of life for Damien. And Mr. Leland stood in front of that student body at the auditorium at this great celebration of life and said, "I want you all to know something. Damien showed mercy, and he read this Beatitude 5:7. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And he said, during the time that Damien and we befriended him, took him to church one weekend, he walked the aisle and he gave his life to Christ. And he became a Christian. And today, Damien is with Jesus, with no pain, no suffering, no more infections, no crippled body. He has been shown mercy. And he used it as an example. You never know from one small act of mercy how God is working a whole different arcing story to lead a young, impoverished, handicapped child to have a relationship with Jesus and to be shown mercy himself. So it's so important. Micah 6:8 says, He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with God. You ever ask yourself, God, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? What do you require? Here's your answer. What does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with God. Mercy is love in action. It's a response to someone's need, often at a cost to ourselves. We're all familiar with the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. You can read it in your spare time as homework. But we know a man was beaten and cast into a ditch, and a priest came by and walked around because he didn't want to get involved. And another Jewish man came by and he avoided him. And how often do we see people that are oppressed and homeless or in distress? And it's easier to walk around and to not make eye contact and avoid. But a Samaritan, as we learned last week, who despised and had a very bitter relationship with the Jewish people, got in the ditch. And he gave first aid and he treated this man. He put him on his donkey and he took him to a hotel and he spent the night there treating him. And when he checked out the next morning, he left money with the innkeeper and said, here's for our stay and I'm giving you extra. Please continue to care for this man. I'm going to go do my business meeting and on the way back, I will stop in and check on him. And if by any chance it required more cost, I will repay you the difference. You see, we are called to forgive when we've been wronged, even when we're disliked, even when it may be someone that we consider our own opposition. To help others, even when it's inconvenient. When we harden our hearts, we miss out on God's mercy. So your question today, are there grudges or judgments, bitterness that you need to let go of to fully live out this beatitude? Earlier I said, think of somebody. Maybe it was a friend that betrayed you, did something behind your back, cost you a relationship. Maybe you've got a sideways relationship with a parent or a wayward child if you're a parent. That relationship is off the tracks. Maybe it's a coworker. Don't look at them right now. Maybe it's a coworker, somebody that's just got under your skin, did something to you at the office behind your back, whatever it is. The devil is going to lie to you and say, don't get involved. Don't show mercy. That person doesn't even deserve it. You know what they did to you? They don't deserve your mercy. But we have to understand that when we see that person, we need to see him as God sees them. God sees them as a person made in his image, as a child of God. And when he looked at us, he showed us mercy. And we're called to do the same thing in return. You see, showing someone mercy is hard. It's really hard. You know what else is hard? Being a follower of Christ. Because we're called to take up our cross. We're told to deny ourselves and take up our cross daily and follow him. And we have to remember when we show mercy, it's not even as much about the forgiveness and the act of forgiving. You still have boundaries. But the act of mercy and forgiveness and moving on is as much about doing it for your own internal peace and for setting yourself free of that burden and that bondage. James chapter 2, verse 13 says, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment. What a powerful verse, James 2:13. Basically, if we're not showing mercy, we will be judged without mercy. But when we show mercy, mercy will always triumph over judgment. So in closing, Matthew 5:7, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. This beatitude highlights the importance of showing compassion and forgiveness to others with the promise of receiving mercy in return. Have a blessed week. We'll see you right here next week, and we'll be on our 6th beatitude.